I'm about to show you two of the most, I think, revolting people on television. Now, there are many, and most of them appear on Sky News, funnily enough. But in this case, they're on Sky News, and it is this woman who is about as revolting as you get, and it's this guy as well. And so here's Rita interviewing Douglas Murray and suggesting that that what Grace Tame said about Gallagher from Gadigal to the sea or to Gaza was an offence to them. And there's a portion of this, though, that does disturb me. And it's interesting that Rita doesn't pull him up on this. And I'll play it. I'll play the video for you. It's only about a minute, but I'll play it for you. I'll need to stop it along the way because he's very offensive, I think, in terms of failing to acknowledge that Gadigal actually is an Indigenous name for Sydney. That's fair enough. But the fact that he had a go at it, he couldn't help himself. He is I believe, one of the most revolting human beings on this planet. But that by and by, he is relatively influential and he appears on Sky News a lot of the time. And Rita sucks up to him endlessly. And he hasn't got anything, like, I do wonder, he's written a few books, good on him. He's achieved a fair bit of acclaim and accolades as a result of the work that he's done. But he is so extreme and so right-wing that we need to be careful about playing any of the shit that he spouts, because I think in this particular instance, he's stepped way, way over the line. So here's the video.
Gadigal to Gaza, globalised intifada, Douglas. There are calls for Grace Tame, who has been dubbed Australia's Greta Thunberg, to be stripped of her Australian of the Year honours. How do you see this episode in Australia this week?
Well, first of all, it's worth, I think, for some viewers, Rita, making it clear what the first...
I love the way that we've got this Pommy English guy who speaks as if he's got a spoon stuck up his ass, or was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. Maybe that's more appropriate. Telling us about what Gadigal, most Australians know what Gadigal, so I don't know why he had to do that. I guess this is Douglas's way of expressing his knowledge and his understanding about Australian culture.
The word she said was Gadigal, as I understand it, and as our Australian viewers might know, is an Aboriginal term for Sydney. So what Grace Tame seems to be saying, among other things, is that she doesn't want to refer to Sydney by its Australian name, and she sort of wants to go deep down, presumably into sort of, First Nations, colonizing sort of rhetoric from the beginning. But what she's saying, if you take out that bit of a particular absurdity, what she's saying is from Sydney to Gaza, globalize the intifada. Well, of course, only weeks ago, we saw what that globalizing of the intifada means in Sydney. It means massacring people on Bondi Beach, specifically targeting Jews and shooting them, including children and elderly.
Now, we need to be mindful of the fact that is not, and I did a post on this yesterday when I did my live feed, this is not what intifada is about. And it's not what many of us who are progressive and sit on the left think of when we're thinking of intifada. We're thinking of pushing back and resistance. That's what we're thinking of. And I'm quite convinced that this is what Grace was thinking about, pushing back against the massacre, the genocide that is Gaza. That's what we're all referring to. So we need to note here that Douglas wants us to focus on the extreme. So the two guys that killed all those people on December the 14th, they were instigated or they were motivated by an intifada. We don't know any of that, incidentally, right at this particular point in time. ISIS certainly, but whether it was an intifada or not is another issue. However, it is important that Douglas wants us to understand that this is about the intifada, meaning the killing and execution of people. This is not what Grace and many of us think. It would be horrified to think that that's what was the outcome. But this is where he goes, because for him, this is the key and primary issue.
Women on Bondi Beach in Sydney. So there is no, this isn't metaphor anymore. It's not some kind of, parable or something. That's what she's calling for, knowingly.
It is a metaphor. It is a metaphor. And he doesn't want to accept that because the extreme right just want to focus on potential violence. And this is the issue he's selling here. He is selling the notion of violence towards another group of people. Those of us that are pacifists would disagree with that entirely. But for some reason, this is Douglas's narrative. And wait until you hear what he says next.
He's saying, let's have more of the shooting of young girls and elderly people and anyone that can be shot. I have to say, I'm pretty startled. It takes quite a lot to shock me these days, but I'm pretty amazed that just weeks after the blood was on the sand of Bondi Beach, you have somebody, let alone who's been honoured by Australia, actually calling for much more blood to be spilt.
Again, notice the reference to assuming that this is what Grace meant. It is wrong. It is disingenuous. It is distorting the issue, which is what this man really is wanting to achieve. And hopefully, the reason why I do these videos is to challenge people like Douglas Murray and also Rita Panahi about their extreme right-wing propaganda.
Of course, people like this always want a lot of blood to be spilt so long as it's not their own. But I suppose Miss Tame just has to hope that the next gunman who comes along and starts massacring Australians misses her and her loved ones. I wonder if she thought any of that through.
The last statement he makes is a threat and an invitation to anybody who thinks that they could, who believes in his story and his narrative. For anyone who hates, despises Grace Tame, or anybody who sits on the right, on the left in particular, that is progressive, anybody, so they are then targets, according to this man. I think that this verges on hate speech. And, I have given some thought to registering a complaint around this sort of language because it contravenes everything that we, or decent people at least, should stand for. Unfortunately, Rita and Douglas are just not decent people. And, Douglas, I think, is the epitome of a coward. If you're using language like this, and if you're unable to find other ways to express your disappointment or your dismay or your disagreement with an issue, then to attack Grace under these circumstances by saying that she's looking for violence is just wrong at every possible level. So let me know what you think about all of that in the comment section below. Remember to subscribe to my videos, ring the bell for further notifications, and also let me know whether you think that what Douglas is talking about here is hate speech, because I believe it is.